All right, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to create a simple plastic materials using Corona. Now, a very straight out of the bat, remove ACS output for this tutorial if you're going to be trying to, replicate this. And also we have a little bit of bloom and glare. So ACS off. The second setting is that for the interactive rendering, I'm not using fast preview denoise during render because I want to see the real thing. And that is pretty much it. I'm working in centimeters display, and I'm using centimeters in the system unit scale, right? So first things first, let's create our first plastic material. Now, these plastic materials are very similar to a glass tutorial, especially with the refraction. But first, we're going to be creating solid plastic material. So let's just use Corona Legacy material. Let's just drag it here. And let's create our white plastic material. So the first thing you need to do is obviously change the diffuse color. So if you want to have a white plastic material, we're just gonna put 180. So I wouldn't recommend going above 200 on white materials, because keep in mind that if we're gonna be applying Photoshop work later on, we're gonna be just killing, the highlights, etc. So you have to keep you have to leave a little bit of space to work with LUTs, color corrections, color gradings, etc. So try to make your materials look on a flat profile side, right? So let's just put this to 180. Let's just put 175, so the material is going to look a little bit more warmer than like completely dead white. And we're going to apply reflection to 0.8. because usually plastics are not that reflective, or not so reflective as, for example, a glass. And if we want to make it fully reflective, right, or we have to put 0.95. Now, why I'm doing not 1? Because it's not going to be 100% solid reflective, right? You want to use a little bit of the blurriness just to make it look a little bit more realistic as for a plastic material, right? And the third or the fourth very important thing is the IOR value index, right? So just put 1.46. That's the IOR for the plastic, right? So we're gonna apply that there, and there you go. We're getting our white reflective plastic. That is basically it. You just put a 180 color, 175 if you want to make it a little bit more warmer, right? Not too much. Don't go below that. Don't go 170 because you're just going to be creating a yellowish plastic material. Now, if you want to go a little bit lower with the glossiness, please do. But as you can see, you're starting to lose it by a lot. So, for example, I'm just going to put here 9.5 because we're just, getting this. I'm just going to drop this a little bit more. There we go. So we're kind of getting a similar plastic result here. Now, if you want to create a more matte looking plastic material, I would recommend putting a minimum of 0.6. I wouldn't go lower than that. I would even recommend putting 1.7 if you want to look at very matte. So you still want to see a little bit of that, glossiness, so to say, even if it's very, very matte, right? Now, if you want to create a black plastic, my recommendation would be not to put 0 numbers, right? Why is that? Well, the same rules applies when you're going to be creating, photoshopping your images, color grading, etc., increasing the contrast. Your objects are just going to become even more darker. So let me show you an example why you should use, for example, minimum at 4, right? So whenever you're going to be applying curves, and I have a curve there, and let me just apply the curve editor. So this is a very rough, as you can see, contrast curve. So as you can see, when I apply the curve, my, so to say, like a grayish flat black material becomes a very black dark material. In some areas, if you right click it, it's it's almost dying, so to say, right? So but the contrast is not that big. Now if I'm gonna create this at 0, look what's gonna happen now. So imagine this is in Photoshop already and you applied color correction. So for example, these areas, as you can see, sRGB colors at 7, 7, 14, and some areas are like completely almost dead, so you don't have a much space to play around with. So keep that in mind, right? So I'm just trying to make a point here. So let's just keep this at 4 for now, right? So this is your black plastic material, and if you want to create, you know, a glossy one as well, there you go, 9.5. As you can see, it's blurring out a little bit. It's kind of sharp, but just don't make it as 1, right? It's just too sharp. I would recommend making it 95 or something like that. You know, if you want to go a little bit higher, you know, you can do that, but my recommendation would be use 9.5 just to make it look a little bit more realistic as for a plastic material. If you want to create a color plastic material, very easy, same settings. You just, what you change is, you know, so let's do some kind of a vintage looking material, something like this, and that is your color material. So literally just changing, and I would never use colors like that, right? Try to, you know, try to desaturate them to 200 or something like that, right? Because like I said, in Photoshop, when you're going to be increasing the vibrance or the saturation, all of these colors are gonna pop out. And please check my tutorial about you know, a lot of CGI beginners don't know this. I was explaining a lot about flat color profile, sRGB color spaces, etc, etc, etc. So, and I was showing examples, you know, what I'm trying to explain here. So there we go. So this is how you create basic, you know, plastic materials. Now a little bit more complicated material. Let's just create a black material, but we're gonna try to apply some, you know, scratches or smudges, so to say, right? So it's gonna look a little bit more realistic, but it's gonna be, you know, a little bit more dirtier. So I'm just gonna apply a dirt map here, and I'm just gonna shift click it down, and I'm just gonna choose another one, maybe this one, fingerprints, right? So look what's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna, so these are two different materials. I'm just gonna show you two different results, right? So I'm gonna apply this into color correction because I might need to adjust it a little bit. Now look how dirty our material is. Now to simplify this and to make it less dirty, we can apply this color to, for example, 10. Sorry, not the color, the value. So what we're doing now is we're using 10% of this texture, and we're using 90% of this intensity here. And keep in mind, this intensity, if you put 0, it's going to be completely black color. If you're going to put 1, it's going to be under the hood, it's going to be 255 white colors. Keep that in mind, right? So I'm just going to put here 0.8, for example, or maybe we'll just leave it 0.9. And there you go, you're getting some smudges, etc. Now let's just plug this into this fingerprint. There we go. So let's just say I want to use it 50, right? And as you can see, you're getting these uneven glossy reflections here, and you know, the plastic material is getting even more realistic, so to say. So for example, let's just put another color, maybe that one there. There you go. Something along these lines. Saturate a little bit. There you go, like a more vintage material. And as you can see, on the lighter materials, your glossiness reflection maps are going to be seen a little bit less because, you know, everything is a lot brighter. So you might need to increase this number, so to say, right? So just keep that in mind. On darker materials, you will see your glossiness reflection maps very well. All right, so I think for the solid plastic materials, that is enough. Let's just create some refractive plastics, right? So let's just create a material from scratch. It's gonna be the same material, just gonna press Corona Legacy material, gonna push this to 4, gonna push this to 1, sorry, not 1, 0.8. I'm gonna push this to 0.95, so very glossy, right? And I'm gonna push this to 4.6, and same numbers for the refraction index as well. So these indexes has to match. and we're gonna put the refraction to 1, right? And we're gonna apply this material into our geometry, and there you go. You have a very simple solid plastic that is refractive, as you can see, right? And the IOR is working very well. It looks very plasticky. Now, if you want to create a little bit more whiter plastic, what you need to do is, you know, try to remove a little bit of that refraction color, and as you can see, it is reintroducing this black color, right? The diffuse color. So if I'm gonna increase the lightness a little bit, as you can see, my plastic material is getting more white, as you can see here, right? Now, if I'm going to increase this to 255, I'm going to lose this diffuse completely, right? So just keep that in mind, right? So if you want to make something along these lines, please do. Or for example, I want to reduce a little bit of that color. So I'm just going to make it, you know, a little bit more refractive, so to say. And this is how you roughly manipulate this guy, right? So very, very simple. Let me create another material, which is going to be colored plastic, which is refractive. So very simple. What you need to change for this material is only the refraction color. So let me change this to, I don't know, some kind of a yellowish material there. There we go. So this is very simple to use. This is gonna be, the color is gonna spread very evenly, right? And by the way, don't use colors like this, right? It's just gonna look very unrealistic, and the geometry itself is just radioactive. This is just looking horrible, right? So let's just drop this to, I wouldn't go above 200. Please remember this, don't just go above 200 with the colors, because keep in mind that you need to keep a little bit, you need to leave a little bit more space for the, you know, post-production later on, right? And even you can drop the saturation, you know, for example, for, I don't know, 220 or even maybe 200 is just gonna go, even this will work perfectly fine. Because keep in mind, when you're gonna be doing you know, photoshopping, and you're gonna be applying a little bit more saturation maybe, right? So 0 is by default. So okay, this is just way too much. So, but you're getting what I mean, right? So your colors are just gonna pop even more. By the way, these numbers are just mad, right? So put 1, you know, this is something like that, right? So if I'm gonna put 0, you know, you're making the color a little bit more on towards the flat profile, right? But you know, just play around, but don't go 255 or even 2020, right? Just try to keep in the, you know, from 180 to 210, something like that values, and you'll be good, right? All right, so this is a very simple colored material. You just change the color, and all the other attributes, you know, remain the same. Now let's just create a little bit more, a more interesting material, and I was explaining this in my glass tutorial. So let's just copy this guy, and let's just apply on our object, and we're gonna keep this color, change this color to completely white, and we're gonna go to volumetric SSS. We're not gonna be talking about SSS right now. We're just gonna use volumetric scattering, and what we're gonna be doing is actually right click, copy the color, and we're gonna paste this color here, right? Nothing is happening because this is at 0. So look what's gonna happen if I'm gonna start increasing this to 5 centimeters. Bam, right? So this looks very, very nice, so to say. I really like this distance effect. I'm a fan. So there we go. So we're increasing the distance now, right? So imagine the object is, as you can see, I'm at 1 meter scale, right? So sorry, this object is around 1 meter, right? So this is actually not affecting the camera distance. So let me show you the example. So it doesn't really matter where your camera is going to be standing, right? Just keep that in mind. So look what look. So I am at 10 centimeters, and my camera is standing, I don't know, something at 130 centimeters. So I'm going to move it back. And as you can see, it's not changing. The rays is not really going from the camera, right? So it's not affecting anything, right? So I'm gonna go back, it's actually what is affecting is the object itself, right? So I'm gonna move with my camera closer. So let me move with my camera closer, somewhere like this, a little bit further. There we go. So we're gonna go and change now the distance, for example, to 15 centimeters. And as you can see, the distance is increasing. So, the rays is penetrating, through the objects a little bit to, further away, so to say. So just for you to understand this in an easier way. So let's just increase this to 25. There we go. Let's increase this to 30. As you can see, my object is getting lighter and lighter, right? So it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same theory behind this is, for example, you're standing, on the shore, and, your feet is in the water, and let's just say the distance is from the water surface to the sand is 20 centimeters, right? So you kind of can see everything through the water, what is going on the sand right below the water surface. But if you're gonna go deeper, like 1 meters, 5 meters, right? You're literally starting to lose. Literally, the sun rays is starting to die. Is literally not penetrating the water anymore. So just keep that in mind. The more the water is clear, the better, right? The more easier the sun rays are gonna penetrate the water, and you're gonna see deeper, right? So it's kind of the same approach here, right? So you can't control the distance on your own. It depends what you want to achieve, right? So by the way, this absorption color and distance is very useful to use on bottles, on glass bottles, etc., like wine bottles. You can use it, especially this works very well on water, right? So for example, sea water, swimming pool water. So for example, if I'm going to choose this color to, I don't know, like a bluish color, something along these lines, and I'm going to increase, let's just say this is a swimming pool, right? 200, it's almost like a bathtub water, or more or less, right? The swimming pool maybe is going to look, it really depends from the depth of your pool. If you have 2 meters, this number is going to be different. If you have 3 meters or 4 or 5 meters depth, you will have to increase this number to make it more clear, so to say. So just keep that in mind, right? So if you have, for example, some kind of like an ocean seawater, so it's going to be like a more greenish, right? So let's just say I'm going to put this to 20, right? Maybe 5. Well, I think it's a little bit too green, right? So let me just even remove this guy here and remove this guy here. So something along these lines, right? So some kind of like a lake water, so to say, right? Or if you want to go even bluer, something along these lines. So really experiment with this setting. It gives very interesting results. And by the way, don't forget you can play still with the refraction color, right? So for example, I'm going to put this to a little bit more yellowish. And as you can see, you're getting very nice. So in the deep ends, you're getting this bluish color. In the lighter ends, this color is starting to show. But, just don't go crazy with the colors like this. Just try to keep it subtle and just, increase the color as you go. And I think you should be perfectly fine. So let's just keep this color now at 0 for now. And I think that is pretty much it for this plastic tutorial. It had to be very short, by the way. So for the refractive materials, check my glass materials tutorial. It's very similar. It should be kind of the same. It's just one thing is changing is the IOR, right? 1.46, 1.46 to get that plasticky look. And also the reflection is less, the glossiness is a little bit different than the glass. And that is pretty much it for the plastic, so to say. So again, if you didn't understand something and you have some questions, please leave them down in the comments. I will try to, answer them or recreate a new tutorial and explain that. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and see you in my next video, guys.